In 1987, a secret corporate betrayal completely blinded the United States Navy underwater. It allowed Soviet submarines to vanish into the deep ocean overnight.
Imagine diving into the deep ocean silence, only to be struck by an invisible sound wave so violent it noise. It's the deadliest weapon ever engineered.
Every submarine has a speed limit. I don't mean their maximum speed. I am talking about the specific speed limit that, if broken, most definitely make a submarine detectable.
Submarines want to stay hidden at all times, except for when they fire a torpedo to sink a submarine or surface ship, or when one of those massive intercontinental ballistic missiles is launched to ruin somebody's day on the receiving end. You would think submarines are the quietest when they are not moving, but that's not always true. A submarine might be standing still, but be more noisy than another submarine that is moving. Moving too fast can generate a lot more noise. The million-dollar question is, what is the ideal speed to keep a submarine stealthy and functional? The answer is directly linked to this 1987 photo, where US lawmakers used sledgehammers to smash a Toshiba radio on Capitol Hill. True story. But why submarines can move faster when they go deeper, and how Soviet submarines became undetectable in the 1980s almost overnight. Why modern American submarines no longer fire torpedoes from their nose, and why this might be the last thing a diver hears before he dies, is not what you think. How can a submarine be noisy when it's not moving at all? Well, because it still has to control its depth. See, the ocean is not a giant swimming pool. For one thing, swimming pools don't have Russian submarines lurking around. Warm water, cold water, salty and fresh water form different layers with different densities and buoyancies. By moving its dive planes up or down, a submarine that's in motion can generate hydrodynamic lift, which allows the vessel to maintain its desired depth, similar to how an airplane can maintain elevation in the air. But when completely still, a submarine loses that lift. So to avoid sinking or surfacing, it must constantly pump or drain ballast tanks to perfectly balance its weight with seawater. And those pumps are not exactly quiet. Nuclear-powered submarines are even noisier because their reactors have to keep running,
even if the submarine is not moving. Now, all these sounds fall under the category of machinery noise.
Pumps, motors, generators, valves, cooling systems, and all kinds of rotating and vibrating equipment inside the hull make sounds that leak into the ocean. But there are two more categories of noise. One is flow noise. That's the sound generated when water moves around a submarine's hull with increasing speed. Water gets more turbulent around the submarine as it rushes, vibrates, and pounds against the hull. The other one is propeller noise, which is self-explanatory, but as you will see, very, very tricky. The thing is, machinery noise doesn't actually change that dramatically whether a submarine is moving slow or fast. But flow noise, that's a completely different story. It can increase rough with the 6th power of speed. In plain English, it means that if a submarine doubles its speed, say from 5 knots to 10 knots, the flow noise doesn't just double, it can increase by 2 to the power of 6, or 64 times.
That's an 18 decibel increase. The question is, how much more detectable does that make the submarine? Sonar operators often use a rule of thumb called spherical spreading loss. In open water, sound level drops by about 6 decibels every time the range doubles. So if a submarine gets 6 decibels louder, that makes it detectable from about twice as far away. Now, if it gets 18 decibels louder, that's 3 doublings. This means going from 5 knots to 10 knots makes it detectable from 8 times farther away. As you can see, a small speed increase can create a huge acoustic penalty. But if you thought flow noise was a big problem, I got news for you. Because the ultimate noise submarines try to avoid at all costs is the sound of water boiling on the propeller blades.
Also known as cavitation. Cavitation happens when the propeller blades spin so fast
that the pressure on the backside of the blades drops below the vapor pressure of the water. This boils the water, just like it would inside a vacuum chamber. But those bubbles collapse almost immediately, which does 2 very bad things. First, it damages the propeller over time, because those collapsing bubbles release enough energy to slowly erode the metal. But second, and much more importantly for a submarine trying to hide, the cavitation sound is loud. Tiny bubbles, big attitude. Cavitation bubbles create a distinct hissing, crackling sound that passive sonar can detect from far away. In many cases, cavitation is much louder than the normal machinery noise or flow noise. For this reason, submarines travel well below the cavitation speed. If you think of cavitation as a speed limit for silence, then a better propeller can increase that speed limit, which is why submarines care so much about propeller design. This is called a skew-back propeller blade, where the tip of the blade is curved backwards. For a ship or submarine, the skewed blade reduces turbulence, which in turn reduces noise. But making a skew-back blade requires special milling machines, which brings us to this 1987 incident on the lawn of the US Capitol. Say what you want about the Soviet Union, but watching footage like this doesn't give me a nice fuzzy feeling about their submarine technology. I mean, come on, 4 missiles? But during the Cold War, one of America's greatest underwater advantages was acoustic.
American submarines were quiet. In contrast, Soviet submarines were loud, making it easy for the United States to keep tabs on them. But the balance of power shifted when the Soviet Union bypassed international trade bans and purchased 9 high-end CNC milling machines that allowed them to manufacture smooth and precise skewback blades. Suddenly, the underwater balance of power shifted overnight. America could no longer hear the new Russian submarines. Here is the kicker. The 2 companies that sold that technology to the Soviet Union were Kongsberg Våpenfabrik of Norway and Toshiba Machine of Japan. The United States was furious.
On behalf of the company, I offer my deepest apologies and my resignation. Your resignation is accepted.
And symbolically smashing Toshiba radios on Capitol Hill. To this day, the specific shape of high-performance submarine propellers remains one of the most closely guarded secrets in naval engineering. That's why propellers are almost always covered when a submarine is in dry dock. But propeller design is not the only thing that affects cavitation. Depth can help too. Just like light bends when it passes through different materials, sound can also bend as it moves through different layers of the ocean, which brings us to thermoclines. That is a zone where water temperature drops quickly. Since sound travels at different speeds through warm and cold water, the thermocline can bend sound waves like an invisible wall, creating acoustic shadow zones where a submarine can hide from sonar. But also, the deeper you go, the more pressure the surrounding water puts on the submarine and the propeller. That pressure increase makes it harder for cavitation bubbles to form in the first place.
So all else being equal, a submarine can move faster at greater depths before cavitation begins. This is also why some newer submarines use a pump jet propulsor, where the blades are completely hidden inside a short tube. This design, among other things, raises the water pressure around the blades, giving the submarine a higher speed before cavitation begins.
Depth might give you speed, but speed takes away something far more important: a submarine's ability to hear.
Going faster makes a submarine louder due to increase in flow noise and propeller noise, even in the absence of cavitation bubbles. And this will impact the submarine's own passive sonars, making it harder to detect other submarines and ships. In the submarine world, you can be fast or you can be aware of your surroundings, but not both. This is why a submarine moves at a tactical speed that's still quiet enough to remain undetected while using its passive sonar effectively, and yet fast enough to be maneuverable. But how about using the active sonar? Passive sonar is like how humans hear. Active sonar is like how bats can see. Going faster makes a submarine louder due to increase in flow noise and propeller noise, even in the absence of cavitation bubbles. One waits passively for the world to make a noise. The other actively makes a noise first, then listens for the echoes to come back. The passive sonar array is housed in the bow of most submarines, and the reason for this is twofold. First, the sonar can listen into the completely undisturbed water that is in front of the submarine. And second, it places the entire length of the submarine between the sonar and the engine room. This is done in order to block the noise. The best way to hear is to move the ears away from the mouth. Ironically, what may look like the mouth is actually the ears. The chin sonar, and what looks like the ears is the mouth, the noisy launch tube. That's also partly why modern American submarines no longer shoot projectiles from their nose. The launch rooms, which are noisy during operation, have been moved from the nose of the submarine to farther back on the sides. Keeping them farther away from the sensor array. While passive sonar is almost always in use, submarines usually avoid using their active sonar because sending out a ping immediately gives away their location. Yes, that famous sound you hear in movies rarely happens in combat. Unless the situation is urgent enough that knowing exactly what's nearby matters more than staying hidden. Unless the situation is urgent enough that knowing exactly what's nearby matters more than staying hidden. Active tracking systems emit extremely powerful pulses that can reach 230 decibels. These intense pulses have been linked to marine life strandings in the deep ocean. you hear anything like this while diving, get out immediately.
Or it might be the last thing that you'll ever hear.
Thank you.